The tiny buck-toothed bite marks dueling for North Borneo's central line form a nation with a history that quite eclipses its size. Though it's been largely isolated from the interests of feuding European powers, its history would eventually intertwine with the trade wars happening just across its ocean borders along the Malayan Peninsula. The 19th century must have felt to the people of Malaya and the Indonesian Isles the way the Native Americans did as they watched their beautiful lands be fought over like a pile of steaks at the gnarled maws of wild dogs. Royalty-supported Europeans swarmed in with battalions of well-armed soldiers and claimed ownership. They sold this murderous campaign to the local leaders as if it was a bountiful opportunity with a shiny red bow on it. The Portuguese, the Dutch, and eventually the British took their turns fighting over trade routes and parsing off the area. And by the mid-1820s, when the Dutch reluctantly ceded Singapore and the Malay Peninsula to Britain, the British chose not to include Borneo in its Anglo-Dutch treaty, leaving it instead to be ruled as it had been, by its own leaders. The problem, however, was that with no modern rule came pre-modern tyranny and pre-modern rebellion. And in 1839, a young adventurer and British entrepreneur saw a chance to make his fortune. Fueled by oppressive rule, a revolt threatened to throw the island nation into chaos. Sir James Brooke seized the opportunity to thwart this rebellion, a fight the Sultanate could never win without British assistance, in exchange for trading rights and the governorship in neighboring Sarawak. At the height of this empire, the most venerated of all heads in Bornean history, Sultan Bukaya, maintained control over the lands and seas from 1485 to 1528. His reign was absolute and went from Kalimantan to the Sulu Sea. It also established its current oceanic delineation, all the way up to Vietnamese waters. This thalassocracy would mark the last time the totality of these territories belonged to a Bornean. Any time throughout the last 6 centuries it's been ruled by the same royal family. By the late 1800s, with the state of Sabah having been ceded to the British North Borneo Company, North Borneo was officially a British protectorate. It remained in British hands until January 1st, 1984. In less than a decade, Brunei announced Islamic law and renounced its ties with Britain. From that point forward, Brunei Darussalam has been forging its own destiny for the first time in more than 100 years.
All right, here we are at the Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque. It's the pinnacle of all mosques in Brunei. You can spend a good afternoon looking at all of the mosques, just walking through town in Brunei and BSB. But this is going to be the most spectacular one. It's got a royal football field in front of it, and I'm not sure if it sees that much action, but in any case, it's the spectacle of the city. BSB is the capital of Brunei, and Brunei Darussalam is strictly a Muslim country. And when I say strictly, I don't mean it in the context that both Indonesia and Malaysia are strictly Muslim. I mean, they are Muslim governments, but Brunei is strict Muslim. Islam here is actually enforced. There was a coup that occurred that the British actually thwarted. The monarchy essentially is the ruling class, and they want strict Islam throughout the land. Having said that, it's also a very wealthy nation. So right across the water here is an island called Bagawan, and that's where all the rich kids go to drink and not get caught, even though everybody kind of knows it happens. So in any case, if you do come here, definitely adhere to a strict dress code, no shoulders, no shorts higher than the knee, things like that. Whether or not you agree with the customs here, your fashion sense is not going to change their opinion of what they want from their country. So in any case, that's an intro to Brunei.
One thing I really enjoyed about walking through BSB was the sidewalks. They seem to have this fascination, or perhaps it's even an obsession, with their tiled walkways. No matter where you are in town, you're never too far from intricately placed tiles that form neat little patterns below your feet. And it's not just the sidewalks. They love pruning and manicuring their roadways and medians as well. This is undoubtedly a symbol used to maintain the notion that the economy is on the up and up. Crude crude oil and natural gas production account for 60% of Brunei's GDP and more than 90% of its exports. Per capita, citizens of Brunei are among the wealthiest in all of Asia. And each Bruneian native benefits from full government coverage of both medical care and education through the college level. When you visit Brunei, there are ultimately very few attractions. Most Western visitors cut through for the passport stamp, but if you have a couple days, take some time and get to know the place. Of course, Brunei's most famous attraction is the Ulu Tumbarong National Park, tucked away in the country's largest forest, the Batu Apoi Nature Reserve. There are manicured climbs leading to a big brass tower, vertigo-inducing views, and even a 60-meter canopy walk. Most don't come here for the shopping, but if you do, wait till the nighttime when the Gadong suburb of the capital comes alive. Centerpoint, Kuilap, and the mall all become alight with more traffic jams than you'll find during the day. But what's probably the best experience you'll have in Brunei is right in the heart of Bandar Seri, Bagawan, the Stilted Village.
It's a pretty low bridge. Yeah. So we're on our way to the floating village, which is actually right in front of us right now. It's supposed to be the largest floating village in the world. They call it the Venice of Asia, and it's said to have 20,000 inhabitants. Very cool.
Brunei's Kampung Air, which translates to water village, is situated in the Brunei Bay. It's the largest floating village in the developed world. My research indicates that nearly 40,000 people inhabit the village, but this differs from the local population estimates, somewhere around 20,000. So I imagine the true populace is somewhere between those two numbers. The entirety of the village is actually a complex of smaller villages connected by nearly 30,000 meters of footbridges. It's more than 4,000 structures, including air-conditioned houses, schools, cyber cafes, mosques, restaurants, a police station, and even a hospital, can all be reached by boat and nearly 40 kilometers of boardwalks. And remember, all of this is on stilts. You can hire a water taxi to drive you through the entire area, but ask around for the drivers who live there. Otherwise, you're just paying an agency, and none of the money will make it back to support the village. You can take a trip out to Kampung Air for the first half of your day, and then take the afternoon ferry to Labuan, where you can party with the locals in the surprisingly active nightlife. From Labuan, you can return to Brunei, or head straight to Sabah's capital, Kota Kinabalu. But before you go, be sure to try the national dish, ambuyat.
Wow, 6. That's a lot. All right. Yeah. So you take it and you put it in and you spin.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wanna show me? Oh my gosh! Look at that. That is no joke.
And put the sauce.
And then eat it.
Yeah.
All right. Terima kasih. All right. So this is called ambuyat, and it's a gelatinous, I don't even know what you call it, conglomeration of goo and various other things, I guess. Mostly goo that you put into this sauce and you eat it. So we'll see how it goes. My tongue's right from it. That's hard to take, I'm not gonna lie. Wow, that's very difficult. The first taste is bad, and then it's got an aftertaste, which is worse. But I was told that I have to try this because this is the national dish. I guess the history behind it is more important really than the dish itself, and I agree. So popularized in and around World War II, this dish became kind of like the staple for people here The Japanese came in and cut off the rice supply. That's the first thing they did, was to cut off the food supply. And so what they did was they shaved down the pith of the sago tree, ground it down into a powder, and then mixed it with water and other things. And what they came up with was this. And they eat it with what would be normally chopsticks. They split a bit. My cough is not going to let me be a regular narrator today. This would normally be a chopstick, but they split it in half, but they keep it right at the little, I don't know, nut, whatever you call that little joint there, obviously so that you can do this with it. It tastes a lot like a slug with spice. It is not very good. Looks like I'm not the only one with a cough, too. I'm going to go ahead and stop eating that and never regret it. And but be happy that I had the experience. It by itself, I'll try it by itself. We'll do that. Maybe I'm not giving it enough of a try because maybe I'm just going with the sauce. So here goes. It's definitely the sauce that sucks, because this doesn't taste like anything. It tastes like really thick water. It's like slug-like water, like snot if it had a taste, or if it didn't have a taste. I don't know what snot tastes like. Yeah. That is completely tasteless. That has no taste, which makes me wonder why they would make it taste bad with that. That really tastes horrible. For $6 Bruneian dollars, this horrible experience can be yours.